Alrighty, this is it. Welcome to our vertical slice presentation for our passion project, Kelvin. I'm here on behalf representing all wonderful developers and Neal Gallagher on RNG Forge. We're really excited. We've been working so hard on presenting what we're going to show you today, and we're just excited to get started. So let's dive in. But obviously, before we start, got the word of the status update. Today we're going to be talking about ray marching. I thought that there were way too many rays already, like ray casting, ray tracing, like ray gun from Call of Duty. There are just way too many. Caldwell kept telling me this was a thing. So if you want to know, ray marching is a new technique to render real-time scenes. You can read the rest of that, but ray march is the word of the status update. You'll probably hear that a couple times today. As we go through today, we're going to be breaking down once again kind of the overview of our game. For those of you that forgot, or for those of you that weren't here for the first presentation, give you the setting, give you kind of some of the gameplay ideas and cores that we went for. We're also going to show you, obviously, our gameplay demo. We've got a full-fledged vertical slice, visual target gameplay demo that we are very excited to show you. As well, we're going to dive into the nitty-gritty of the progress that we've made over the past month, and then respond to some feedback. We got some great feedback from professors and our alumni, and we've taken some steps to respond to that feedback already. And then, obviously, towards the end, we'll get into the project management part, which I know everybody's excited for. But to begin, give you a quick recap on our game. Kelvin is a third-person action platformer set on the space station Haven 1. This space station is owned by an evil and corrupt science industry corporation, and they're performing experiments on individuals against their will. And so you play as Kelvin, and through a lot of experimentation, your molecular chemistry has been altered into that of a gelatinous slime. You're there against your will, you're not quite sure what's going on, and you'll be taking over the position of Kelvin, like I said. Now, through a bunch of experimentation, Kelvin is now able to change his molecular makeup. On the left, you see Kelvin. He is the first experiment. He's the only experiment that you will play as. And on the right, you see Foe. Foe's been there for a while. He's pretty pissed off, and he is angry. So at the very beginning, he breaks out of confinement, and in his rampage to destroy the space station, he sets Kelvin free. And the story follows Kelvin going through the environment, following Foe, trying to find a way out, and trying to see what kind of destruction he is causing. This is the layout of our game set on our space station. It focuses on the central hub, and you will start in the containment facility. You move into the central hub, and now you're able to move either to the hangar or the foundry from there. And for our vertical slice presentation, we focus primarily on the foundry. All of our art, level designs, visual effects, all of it was focused on making this foundry look as good as possible so that we can base all our decisions off of there. So because of that, we want to change up the mood a little bit, give off that foundry vibes. And then before the demo, let's go over a little bit of the gameplay core. Our game is all about temperature, the way that temperature affects you and the way that you can control your own internal temperature. Through raising your body heat, you can melt down into a fluid gelatinous slime. If you stay in the neutral state, you are a bipedal humanoid creature that can move around the environment. And then finally, in the solid state, you freeze up, you get a nice kind of crust around the player, and you can roll around the environment like that. The player has the options to move freely between each of these states at will. And through the platform, they'll be able to chain these combinations together with their unique abilities. Each state has a unique ability. So our fluid state is much smaller. It's able to crawl on walls, crawl around corners, form to edges. It does have a limit. It can't crawl forever, but it will be smaller and able to traverse vertically. Our gel state has a lot of different options. It's a typical platformer for the gel state with a run, double jump, a wall stick that gradually slips, and a wall jump. And then finally, in our solid state, you can roll around. It's a physics-based rolling, and it's pretty heavy, hazard resistant, and it's a lot of fun to roll around in. So, without further ado, let's get into the demo. Come on up, Neal.
I'm going to stop sharing my screen briefly to switch.
go. Turn that on for me quickly. Wonderful. So welcome to our Foundry. This is the third zone of our game and is the center industrial point for the Haven 1 space station. In this location, the overarching corporation forges and manufactures their machines. The reactor core and assembly line are the two major focal points of this zone. At this point, Kelvin has been following the other experiment foe. They're able to catch a glimpse of foe as he blazes a trail through the environment. I'm going to let Neal play through the level for a bit in the gel state so you can get a feel for what that environment looks like. Alrighty. The first thing I want to bring your attention to is our main character, Kelvin. First look at his model. He's sculpted in ZBrush and rigged with unique dual jointed feet to give him the experimental frog-like look. Currently, he has a proxy texture on him, but if you look closely, you can already see the reptilian ridges that we have on his arms. Perfect. The colors resonate with the hope and positive outlook that Kelvin will have in our story. Next, we have a couple of animations that we want to show off. Our idol makes Kelvin look pretty antsy, but is itching to get moving, so he's hunched forward with anxious breathing. The next animation we want to focus on is his walk animation. Let's see what that looks like without moving. Perfect. Notice he walks in a nervous but eager gait. Kelvin also has a jump animation. Let's see what that looks like. Wonderful. While we're here, we can also point out our 3D models and effects. To Kelvin's right, you can see our reactor and reactor core. This powers the facility and the foundry and looks pretty badass. So let's take a closer look at it. Wonderful. Now to his left, let's take a look at the fabricator, which is used by the scientists in the facility to create the objects the foundry will make. Notice the in-progress robotic foot with original laser, spark, and hologram effects. Wonderful. Now, before we progress to the level, let's head back to that wall joint section. We want to show you our state change transitions. And so let's start by transitioning into the fluid state. The fluid state has a procedurally animated effect that uses ray motion. It blends itself with the environment using distance fields and uses sphere casting, which is another casting, to stick to the walls and detect corners. Let's say stick to the wall and climb around a little bit. Wonderful. Finally, let's take a look at our solid state. Through lowering their temperature, Kelvin will form a thick frozen shell around itself that allows them to roll around the environment and gain momentum. Go ahead and show them what it looks like here. Awesome. I'm going to let Neal play through the rest of this level sequence. Good luck. Wonderful. And now we've entered our white box action block zone. So first, we're going to head over to this first action block and show you a little bit of our gameplay in conclusion. So in this first area, the player will run, jump, switch to the fluid state, and climb the rest of the way. Let's see what that looks like. You know? Awesome. And in this next state, we're going to incorporate the same mechanics, but with wall jumping into it. Let's see what it looks like. And then finally, we're going to add a little bit more wall jumping and with the fluid state as well. Let's see it. Very nice. And now it's time to add in some rolling. So let's see what it looks like when you roll a transition fluid state and use that momentum to climb up. And then finally, we're going to show off all of the three states in conjunction to get through a platform section. Let's see. All right, and before we move, we'd like to turn up the volume once more just so we can hear that music. Our music was composed by a producer at Johns Hopkins, or a composer at Johns Hopkins. All of our sound effects, including our walking, wall jumping, and all the traversal, fluid state, and solid state, were obviously done by Glennon and did a wonderful job. So let's just show a little bit of what that looks like. This one's interesting. All righty. That's our demo. Let's give a round of applause for Neal and the rest of the Forge team. Alrighty, so now you've seen our demo, and we want to take a second to dive a little bit deeper into the progress that went to make this demo possible. Now, we showed you guys all this slide in the last status update, and we showed all the commitments that we wanted to make for vertical slice. And I am very pleased to be able to announce that we have gotten almost all of these in, plus a few more. Now, you will notice the one item in red. We did not want to start with the animation transitions until we had those individual states down a little bit more solid. So we are pushing that off into this next month, but we're comfortable with that because we were able to focus more on making those mechanics clean. And additionally, the item in gray was an oversight on my part. You obviously can't light levels unless you set dress them, and I just, that was an oversight on my part. But we're going to focus primarily on this art one first. We're going to go through each of these. But at the bottom, you will notice chili. Parker had an amazing chili, and there were some weird rumors going around that the project lead submitted like 100 votes. I think it was still stolen, but whatever. This chili's good. So as you can see, Kelvin has been sculpted and giving texture. We're really happy with where he is. He does have that vibrant, bright look. It's still currently a proxy texture, but it does give us the mood and feel that we want the player to have. Additionally, this same texture, that took 23 hours. Again, we are trying to make that proxy a little bit more realistic so we can fit better into our environment. We're already adding the ridges on his arms. We're going to make the slime on his back move and morph with the environment, so he'll look more like a slimy creature. So we'll be happy to show you that pretty soon. We also were able to rig Kelvin, so he does have a dual jointed kind of feet, like I said. So that gives him the ability to look more hunched over and creepy. Kind of like an experiment would on this space station. And with this rig, we were able to make these animations to bring him to life. So you can see we have a falling animation, a walking animation, an idle, and a jump. These are only going to get polished more and more as we move forward, but I'm really happy with where they are currently. And those took 16 hours so far. Perfect. So we did take a bit of a transition. In our last status update, we said how we wanted to make the fluid state a quadruped IK rig with procedural animation placed on top, but we found that it would be more effective for us to use ray marching and distance rendering to create it in the fluid state that we have now. So currently it uses soft body dynamics, also known as jiggliness, to move around like that, and we're really pleased with where that is currently. But the work wasn't lost. We are going to be reusing some of that IK and repurposing it to make our wall jumps look more believable. So currently it's just an animation pose when the player jumps on a wall, but we want to make sure that that feels dynamic, and so we're going to be adding some dynamic IK movement to this wall jump suit. In the past month, we were also able to get a mesh and weave transition for the solid state. So right now he is solid and he glows, and we're really pleased with where he's at currently. Going forward, we will make him look a little bit more frosty. We might be able to see the player within through some frosty, icy kind of gaps. But so far, we're really pleased with how it looks so far. So this wouldn't be a presentation done by me if I didn't stop you halfway through to clap for our team. I'm really proud of how far Kelvin's come, so give the Forgers a round of applause, please. All right. Now, we've also started working on Foe. Foe is going to share the same rig as Kelvin, but he looks a little bit more vicious and aggressive, and he has some spikes on his back. His colors are going to be darker and more sinister because after the years of being experimented on, he has kind of morphed into this angry, vicious version of the same experiment. We were also able to make 15 different 3D models that go into our foundry, and we're really happy with how they look so far. We've got some fabricators, reactor cores, signs, and it's only going to be going up from there. So we're really pleased with how these look currently. And those took 80 hours total. These were the visual effects references that we showed you at the January status update. We wanted to show how temperature would affect the player and how the facility was powered and the sci-fi holograms. So this is what we showed you in the last status update. And now we're pleased to show that we have our own visual effects. And we're really pleased with how they look. So we can make the environment look warmer. We can make the environment look more dangerous with our explosions, as well as have that sci-fi and industrial look with our holograms, sparks, and lasers. And in total, these took 43 hours to make. And then finally, for our art section, we have our reactor core. And this thing looks incredible. It has a volatile, warm energy to it. And we're really pleased with how it kind of brings the whole foundry together with the one beacon of light that the player will revolve around, which took 8 hours to make. So moving on now, we're going to be moving into our design section. And our designers have been really hard at work creating the foundry, whiteboxing some new zones, and creating the sound for our game. So on the left, you'll see where the foundry was in the previous status update. And at that point, it was just a simple block mesh, playtesting area. And that is so much better and so cool. And I'm just really pleased with how far it's come. We've been able to do several lighting passes on it, set dress it, add the assets. And I'm really pleased with how it looks currently. And you can see all of that there. Additionally, for our foundry, we wanted to focus on making a paper prototype before we move into the puzzle section. So the foundry will have another room that focuses on moving conveyor belts. And so we wanted to test this out a little bit more thoroughly while the mechanics were being finished. So currently we have a good idea on how we can make this puzzle include the states and be entertained at the same time. And so we were able to create this wonderful little paper prototype to test that in our co-workspace. Additionally, we have our hub. Now the hub is the center point of the zone. And this is all the work that we showed you in January. What we wanted it to look like, be very grand and clean and kind of look like a lobby in the environment, as well as the block mesh on the right. However, now that block mesh has gotten much more detail, and we're able to show you a little bit of a playthrough. Alrighty, and so now we can specify some of those zones more specifically. So in the hub, we're going to have obviously the tunnels to the different, the foundry, the hangar, and the containment facility, as well as a back room, a central office, and a robot processing plant. Those white boxes have been complete, and we're only looking at, repeating this stuff with some modular assets to make sure that we can fill up this big hub. But we're really excited for how it looks. I'm excited to move forward to the next sprint with this. And that's totally so far taking 56 hours. Unfortunately, over the weekend, there was a tragic accident that happened to the hub. Big explosion went off, and our hub master, who was working on the level design, didn't take too long.
Oh, I fell out of my chair. Oh, that was sick.
A lot of our team gets together and streams them playing Overwatch together. So that's just a clip from there. And then finally, we're going to focus on our programming section. So our programmers have taken this abstract idea about a state change system that's never really been done before at this scale and brought it to life. We have 3 different states with 3 different controllers all that look visually appealing, and they work with our gameplay. And we're incredibly pleased with how far it's come out. I'm gonna restart the PowerPoint real quick and see if that'll fix this issue. 1 second. Wonderful. So as you can see, our gameplay now includes momentum. So the player can run, jump, and switch into different states, as well as if they're already moving, they'll be able to maintain that momentum with a parent controller. We obviously have our Ray March fluid movement, so the character can wrap around corners, squeeze between edges, go over the top of things. And additionally, all of those traversal functionalities took a lot of edge casing to figure out what exactly we need to do to make the ball roll into the fluid, make the double jump stay on the wall so that you can transfer into the fluid. And so it took a lot of meticulous programming work, but we're really happy with how the state change system is currently. As well, the programmers were able to give our Foundry some life, so we've got some moving pistons that the player can interact with. We've got moving platforms that help with the platforming sections, as well as the base game functionality. So we have our checkpoint system, so if you die, you'll get respawned, and our animation state machine. Our animation state machine is already very complex, which I will again speak about later, but we're gonna be working on the animation state machine so that while transferring between different zones, you're able to maintain the animations that we want. And now it's time for feedback. So in the last status update and with talking with our alumni advisors, we got a lot of really great feedback on how we can improve our game. So you can see, we took that pretty seriously. So these were the 3 major pieces of feedback that we wanted to respond to. We found out that our individual states can be, while the state change system is very fun, the individual states themselves need to have a more engaging draw to them. So we've been addressing that. While our space station will be devoid of direct human life, we do want to fill up our space station a little more. So we got some feedback that our setting might feel a little empty, and we've taken steps to be able to fix that going forward. And then finally, we did not have a very specific target audience. We did want to make a portfolio-focused game focusing on a recruiter, but that was a little too vague, and it kind of hurt our design decisions. So we've taken steps to specify who our target audience is, and that has helped us make some design decisions already. So in the fluid state, currently, we have some environmental effects that we want to increase the playability without directly increasing the amount of mechanics that the player needs to learn. So currently, we're looking at adding a launch pad. We've already started with some experimentation on how that launch pad would work, as well as switching between gaps in the fluid state. So we're going to keep iterating on these and see what other environmental effects we can add. We don't want to overburden the player with so many different states, with so many different controls. So we believe that using environmental effects to increase the playability in each state will help. So that we've primarily been focusing on the fluid state. Additionally, to focus on making our area feel a little bit more alive, we've written up a script for our scientists and our security system. And we're going to have those playing over intercoms, as well as a little robot that will be following the player around potentially. We're currently prototyping this stuff, but the script so far is looking really good. It has a mix of taunting the player, warning the space station, and we're really excited to show you that detailed once we get it implemented. As well, we have a security defense system that's being worked on by our tech design team. Things like the camera following the player and shooting lasers at it, different doors closing at unexpected times. We believe that focusing on our scientists and security will help our environment feel a little bit more, alive, so to say. And then finally, at the last status update, Rick poked a little bit of fun at us by saying, I guess you could have a recruiter be the target audience, and that's exactly what we decided to do. So we focused on a AAA recruiter that works in the HR department. And from our research, the closest MBTI is the ISTP virtuoso. So this person is quick to make decisions. They're quick on their feet. They're very opinionated, but they're not afraid to make decisions very fast. And so because of that, because of understanding our target audience more, instead of having the player enter the hub and be forced to go to the foundry, we've opened it up so that the player can choose to go to the hangar or the foundry, and then have the ending sequence play once you finish both. So that's helped us make the game feel a little bit more, welcome and engaging, and we're excited to see how that plays out in the end. And then finally, our risks. So at the last status update, we showed you these risks. These are the risks that we wanted to mitigate by today, and thankfully we've mitigated all of them. We were able to maintain velocity with our parent controller between each state. When it comes to our liquid state performance, we are able to boost our performance by not having an IK rig and procedural animation plan all at the same time. Instead, with ray marching and limited primitive shapes, we're able to make our liquid state look good while not hurting our performance. And then finally, we have a lot of level designers, and we wanted to make sure that we were being pretty uniform with our state's abilities. So we have our state ability implementation list that we're using with our block meshing to make sure that our levels all feel consistent. Going forward, we have our 3 messes that we hope to mitigate by March 31st. Now, currently debugging 3 different character controllers with a bunch of different mechanics, all while playing live, can be a pain. And so we're looking at polishing and simplifying the state change system while still making the functionality all there. That'll just help our programmers be able to focus on different things going forward than trying to find what's going on in our program. As well, we have 4 different zones, all with different lighting. And we don't want to just have lighting be the only guiding player, the only guidance for the player to progress through the level. So we're looking at things like slime droplets from foe, different colors on materials, and we want to make sure that the player has a sense of direction without the lighting being the only way to guide the player forward. And then finally, the animations between different blueprints and blueprint controllers is a bit of an issue. So we are looking into ways that we can keep animations playing while actively and pretty quickly moving between different states. And so by March 31st, we will have mitigations for all 3 of these. And now it's feedback time, or it's projections time. So starting off with our hours, this is the distribution of our hours between the first 2 weeks of our sprint. So we started out the semester with a bottom heavy week, as you can see from the 80-20 split in the top left. And we want to make sure that we keep our hours pretty consistent week by week and not front load everything right in the first week. So since our last status update, we've gone through 2 more sprints and our team has made some improvements. In both sprint 2 and 3, we've had about a 60-40 split. And while that's not still ideal, we did expect this because coming into vertical slice, there's a lot of extra work that needs to be done to ensure that you're ready for that day. And so we're comfortable with where these numbers are. However, we can see that we're making progress and we're only going to keep trying to find ways that we can ensure that our hours are even over time. Additionally, taking a closer look at our sprint completion. We want to use data to know what's happening with our team and keep track of how things are looking. Right now, this is where we're at. We're going to keep an eye on it to see where we're at next month. Maybe we'll find out that we need to make some adjustments to our process from the information we learn as pre-production ends and we enter production in March. To break down these numbers you see on screen, you'll see that there was a 13% drop in estimate accuracy from sprint 1 to sprint 2. We had a jump in our sprint completion from sprint 1 to 2, but we recovered in sprint 3. This was due to user errors on the lead's part when planning in Jira, but moving forward, we put in processes to prevent this from happening so that we continue to improve and have these numbers stay consistent over time. And then finally, this is our schedule for the rest of the spring when it comes to completing our levels. So we want to kind of move everything forward all at once and allow our level designers to work on each of the different zones. So we're breaking it down for you here. And by the end of sprint 8, we hope to have all of our assets into the game, as well as our lighting, and our character will be done hopefully by sprint 6. And then these are our commitments for March. So by the end of March, we hope to have some temperature restrictions to make sure that the gameplay feels consistent. Basic UI, we want to refine that state change architecture, as well as some animations, some VFX, 3D models. We're going to have the final versions of all of our states looking the way we want. And then finally, we want to improve our ability to make action blocks. We want to have block mesh pass on the hangar and the containment facility, have the room 2 with the puzzle in for the foundry, and have 5 more environmental sound effects. All right. That is our team. We want to give special thanks to Zach and Cassandra. They've been a wonderful help at making sure that we're on track and helping us with the process, as well as Pat, Joe, Balana, and Taylor Welling. They've all helped us tremendously. So one more time, I want all the porters to stand up and give yourselves a round of applause. If my leads would like to come on up, we're ready for some feedback and questions.
You made it stand up again, huh?
All right. Can you just for a second mute? Thanks. All right.
1 second.
Cool. Doesn't matter because we're gonna see if Chris Rhoda is out there. I saw him online, so
Yeah, I'm here.
yeah, I see him. There you go.
Okay, overall, I have to say I'm very impressed by the vertical sliceness of this presentation. Art-wise, I thought it was really fantastic. I really got a good sense of how the Foundry was looking, and I could easily see how this is going to extrapolate onto the other levels. So, excellent work with that. And as far as excellent work as far as putting together a vertical slice. And yay, Ray marching! Kudos to you guys for having the cojones for trying to pull it off. Now, I could pick it apart all day long about using your sign distance fields and adding more noise into the actual shape of it. But right now, you're actually in a great state, and ultimately, I'd like to try to see some kind of a presence to get some kind of like recognizability of the Kelvin face into the into your sign distance fields. But other than that, kudos to you for taking on this endeavor. I've been looking forward to seeing a application like this for a long time, so I'm really excited about this. This is really cool. The Foundry level lighting is off to a really good start. I love the way that you've got a good shadow presence here, a good lighting balance. It's a bit too dark in some various spots, and you're falling off into blackness in some certain places, and you're losing information. Now, I know that your artists are working very hard to add a lot of minute detail, and you're suffering from a little bit of black clipping, but overall not too bad. Excellent work. I wasn't quite sure. Do you have shadows in for the gel state and the ball state yet?
As of right now, no, but we are going to be implementing that in the coming sprint.
Okay, yeah, excellent work. Because that's one thing is that we needed for that for the consistency. The Kelvin locomotion, I think needs a little bit of love. Right now, he moves at the same speed going up, down, left, and right, and on flat surfaces. And there doesn't seem to be a real sense of gravity in it yet. The character looks heavy, but when he walks, he appears somewhat weightless, and he's still skating around. And the jump animation just doesn't quite feel like it matches the character mass yet. And likewise, when whether in the ball or in the biped state, when the character falls, it does not feel like he's following the same sense of gravity. Okay, I have information on the, mind you, I feel like I'm nitpicking this, but I'm really excited because you've got it to a great state. And so I can start really focusing on trying to really fine tune a lot of these things. So I feel like I apologize for all the negative criticisms, but it's really based on nitpicky, fine tuning kind of stuff that I'm really excited about. The fluid state doesn't feel sticky yet. It's sliding, but it's not yet flowing or crawling. I know this is something that you can probably work with as, like I said, adding more kind of like directed noise into the into your sign distance fields. And likewise, the Kelvin material, it's off to a good start, but I think the material needs to feel more slimy and oily. And you need to increase your specular components, because right now he's coming across as somewhat plasticky. And I think that if you were going to go in the opposite direction of being slimy and oily, you would want to try to start moving it towards something more, a little bit more dry and pasty, kind of like snake skin or reptile skin. But I don't really feel that that's what you're really going for. So, try to, increase the specular components to kind of like bring up the liquid there. But overall, I like where you're off to right now, because it definitely feels more realistic than stylized. So, you've got an excellent start. Now, you already mentioned that you can be working on the transitions. And I think that your character work will really be affected by better transitions between the states. And, you're off to a great start already. And so maybe something you want to use is something like that. Or vertex animation textures, and then swapping the character in and out in order to get things going. And you could combine that with the locomotion state. So yay on that reactor core. It brings up very fond memories of Fifth Element. And thank you very much. And so that, brings up good memories. So, excellent work. And, I'm really excited on where you're going art-wise. And so I'm looking forward to see how you extrapolate the Foundry into the other levels. So great work, gang.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right.
I suppose it's,
Yeah. Good.
we just got to mute ourselves.
Yeah, I know. All right. I'm gonna try to stay on time here today because I got like a hard stop at 4:30. Although you guys could keep going, but I'm gonna have to leave at 4:30. But I'll let Ron go next. We're gonna try to get this done by roughly 3:45-ish or so. But
I got it. So you're muted.
Audio then. All right, feedback, no? Yay. Okay, cool. All right, fun stuff. You have a vertical slice. Look at you. It's so hard. Oh my goodness. It's so hard to do, am I right? Like, there's so many elements. Sorry, my video should be on too. There's so many elements. You have to have all the elements, right? Art and programming and design and level design and audio and sound effects and visual effects, and it's just so much. It's so much. So it's Herculean to get there, especially in this time frame. So I'm very impressed that you all have a full, complete vertical slice. So some notes. I do feel that Faux seems like a little bit too similar to Kelvin, especially from a silhouette perspective. I see you on the spikes on the back, but I'm wondering if we often may not see the character from that perspective. And there's still some ridgy spikes on Kelvin too. So yeah, this was a shot where I was reacting to that. From their heads, the ears are almost the same, and the horns are almost the same. So I mean, they look like siblings in a way. Maybe Faux is a little bit more of a rougher sibling, but for my money, it feels like, and yeah, you want to keep the same rig, but it feels like you want this to feel like a very different entity. And that's why it's so evil and mean and angry and awful. And so I'd encourage you to look towards a bit more differentiation amongst between the protagonist and the
that's a great point. And that's actually something that I forgot to mention as well. It's just an extra part of that is we are looking at making Kelvin smaller. So it'll be kind of waist height, and will probably stay big and posted. But
yeah,
I get with the textures and script, sculpt, and yeah.
And honestly, if you don't get to the point where there's a significant visual discrepancy between the two of them, you may play to the fact that they're related, that they're from the same experiment in a way where yeah, they kind of look similar, but they look similar because they are from that same issue. So because that's the way it reads, at least now to me. I was amused by the PowerPoint animations that you added and the sparks and the smoke. I think that was great. That's a nice effect. Every now and then, maybe make them fade out too, though, if you're going to sit on a slide for a long time, because sometimes it can start to become distracting. I'm sure you've seen presentations where people throw up an animated GIF and it repeats over and over every 5 seconds. And at some point, it's the only thing you can look at and you're not listening anymore. And so it wasn't nearly as bad as that, because it's just little sparks, but it's something to be aware of. I know I've made that mistake in PowerPoint. Yeah, I share Chris's concerns on some of the animation, but you know what? You all should take the compliment that you get to have detailed animation comments, because they're in the game. And in working, the jump animation is not perfunctory. It's it happens when I press the jump button, and let's see if we can get the right height. And that's a great example of the kind of thing I was talking about on Monday with the teams. Is jump is a good example where, by default, you cue it as soon, you cue the animation as soon as you get the input, and then you also make the translation into the air all at the same time. But of course, that's not going to work because you need the legs to actually build that momentum and that anticipation and then leap off. So, okay, I can cue the animation, but I'm not going to really translate yet. And then what about the landing? Like, does it look good when it lands? Does it look realistic as the creature's flying through the air? And none of that can be determined until you're actually jumping on platforms in the environment for reals, right? So I think that's something that you all can get right because you've got your pace and momentum of getting this stuff in game. And so, yeah, I'd say book a private session with Chris where it's just you all and him, and let him get in there and dig in with the animation timing and anticipation and all that with you all, because he's really good at that. And you all have the power to make it look really clean. The fluid state looks awesome. I really love that. Such a cool effect. My note would be, is there a way that it can be parameterized where we wouldn't quite detect the repetition of it? Right? Yes. Yeah. I did see that, which is such a nit, you know, I almost like I'm mad at myself for giving you that note, but it is true that I could detect like, oh, okay, it moves in this pattern. And if there's a bit of jitter and randomization on that, then it's like, oh, going to be so perfect. So awesome. And yeah, Chris was mentioning the transitional animations in and out of states. That's very important. From a design perspective, you're hitting your marks of like, okay, you roll down the ramp and then you fluid up onto the wall to stick onto it, and then you do the wall jump. Like it's all there. Like you've got the bits and pieces. I'm not feeling the wow moments yet of those challenges / puzzles / speed running things, however you want to describe them. I'm not feeling the awe of being inspired by one of those challenges. So that's my big note design wise, is to continue to fight the good fight with your action blocks and your design to create those wow moments. Because you can clearly achieve them. Like your implementation prowess is impressive.
We're taking a decent step back on focusing mainly on block meshes and more on action blocks, at least over like the next sprint or two, because we want to find more of those ones.
Yes, cool. So the lighting pass task, you took the hit for that, Riley. Was that like a late add in the slide and you hadn't chatted with the team about it?
Are you talking about the vertical slice commitments?
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought that we'd be able to get lighting.
Yeah. And so that's the note, that like the team has to see that and validate it, because chances are if they see that, somebody's gonna be like, well, I can't get lighting yet, we haven't set dress stuff. And then it catches that issue. But also more importantly than that, it makes sure that they are on board and they've signed up for these commitments. And that you're not writing caches checks that they can't cache. What does the Foundry actually make?
Right now, it's going to be like a progression from, if you saw in the fabricator, it's like a robot, like claw. So there's going to be essentially a robotic dinosaur that's being slowly built throughout the.
Okay, cool. You answered it. The general note is justify everything in the world, right? That's what real pro level designers do. It's like, this place is actually believable as a real place making real things, and it has its own ecosystem to it. And as opposed to, this is an artificial environment just made so that we can run around on these platforms. Okay, leave me alone. Like that's what like B-list game developers do. But the AAA folks, you know, everything makes sense. And then last two quick notes. There could be more than one possible path potentially. Yes, golden path, and there should be a golden path, and you want to guide the player well for that. But consider that there may be a couple of places where it's like, oh, you can actually jump over here and vault over that and slip through this, and that's a different way to do it. I think your game is very amenable to that. It's a scope bomb to incorporate that, of course, but you may, as you're doing your level designs, conceive of, be open to the idea that maybe that can happen. If that can happen easily and naturally, well, wow, it really amplifies the power of the game to do that. And finally, playful culture and sense of humor. I think that comes from you, like the, okay.
That came across like I was like joking. No, all of us have like made sure that we're having fun first and then making the game. Good, because like with the little the panorama of different people in the, I'm not sure what the word is. Like he had a hypo video before this, he had that, like props in. Oh, it's wonderful. To me, that's like the icing on the cake. When you see a team that's implementing well, cool game, can't wait to see it. You're hitting your milestones, but then you're just fun people, like who look like you're having fun. Oh, it makes FIA a magical place when teams do that in Capstone. So thank you.
Great.
So,
Let me mute up.
Muted.
okay. Lots of little tactical nitpicky type of things occurred to me while I was watching that. Some of them Chris said, some of them Ron said. And I started to make a little list, and then I thought, you guys don't need that. You know what you're doing. I suspect that virtually anything that I could say that would be a tactical suggestion is something you're already considering. And I actually believe that. Your team is buttoned up. This is how you do a vertical slice presentation. This is how you do a vertical slice for the project. You're further ahead than 99% of all the teams that I can recall at this stage. You're organized. Your PowerPoint is awesome. I love the effects that you put in to theme it as the Foundry. I have just total faith in this team going forward. So I decided that probably the best thing I could do is keep my feedback strategic. Strategic is kind of like, I'll give you suggestions that are based on the benchmarks that you set, where I think that you would be the best place for you to invest your time, and then leave it up to you guys to figure out tactically how to do that. So you are first and foremost a portfolio piece. So you're making lots of good decisions about, I like the remarching idea because that's like a portfolio piece for a number of people on the project, and you're keeping your mechanics simple. So I don't think you need to do tremendous amounts of experimentation with the kinds of mechanics, and you're keeping them streamlined, which is good. But being a portfolio piece, then it's super important that everything you do is hyper polished, in my opinion. So, looking at kind of your commitments for the month of March and maybe further, for the rest of the semester. This is just my opinion, and you're going to assimilate it and do whatever you think is appropriate. I probably wouldn't even touch any more scope. I'd take what I have, and I would just spend the rest of the semester polishing the crap out of it. You want to overinvest in locomotion. You heard a number of different comments about the animations for the character and the transition stuff. And with transitions, you don't necessarily have to be limited to like a visual effect or something like that. I think there's probably going to be a combination of an actual skeletal animation and some transition stuff and all that stuff. But you want to feel like Prince of Persia quality animations. Locomotion to me is like the number one thing you want to get there. Because right now, I can see you're getting there with the environment and the lighting is starting to look really cool. Animation has to keep pace with it, and I get it. It's first pass, and animation has to by necessity start later, right? Because you got to build everything and then rig it before you can start to animate it. So it's been through fewer iterations, but I would really just recommend, just my 2 cents worth. Everything you can do to dogpile on production value for what you have, more particle effects, smoother and smoother animations, just everything polish. And if you've got any resources left over, then you can sort of forward project with more content. But I think if you want to be a portfolio piece, you just want to show this is what we can do. This is what open up all the throttle, open up the throttle, fire on all 8 cylinders, whatever, choose your metaphor. Then that's what you should do. Just don't worry if you don't have any more content than what you've got. If this is gorgeous, if this is portfolio worthy, you win. You will have more. I guarantee it. But I just wouldn't distract myself with that right now. Just put the pedal to the metal, overdrive on polish. So that's just my 2 cents. Like I said, you guys don't need to hear me get nitpicky tactically. You're better off hearing that stuff from Ron and Chris and whatnot. Those are the sort of specialists in those areas. So that's my 2 cents. You guys are looking awesome. I really can't, I can't ask for anything more than what you've done with capstone process. Good job.